It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill, and today's topic is why low-calorie foods could actually be your problem. Now, that's a very general statement. Your problem as in maybe not feeling as good inside your body and outside, maybe lack of compliance to a diet. So there are a couple problems that could stem from this. But I think when I know that like in my history, in terms of like dieting and the way that I looked at food, and we'll dive into all of the nitty gritty specifics of this, that I very much used to associate low calorie with healthier. I thought higher calorie was bad. I would look at full fat yogurt or certain meals or foods and be like, it was just so calorie dense that I was like, that can't possibly be good for me. Especially coming from the mindset of many adults in general, but specifically adult women who spend a lot of their adult life or all of their adult life dieting. So they just always associate higher calories not serving their greater purpose or intention, right? And I think if you understand what it actually means for a food to be low fat, low carb, air quotes, high protein or protein packed, right, is like a term that you see in marketing. If you understand the intention behind food and what food can actually do for your body in terms of like nutrients and a healthy gut microbiome and all of these things that we talk about, I'm hoping that this episode can help open your eyes and look at food and fueling your body differently versus just chasing 100-calorie snack packs for the rest of your life. Because unfortunately, as a teen and in my early 20s, that was all that I did, was chase very like low-calorie options. And even if I didn't overeat in a day, if I had one calorie dense meal, I felt really guilty about it and like it set me back somehow. So I'm hoping again that this kind of opens everyone's eyes to how to approach food in a healthy way. Jess, I don't know if you have like a history of something similar, but I know that I thought for a long time that I had some level of like even eating disorder, or I can't control myself around food, or binges. And obviously there was a touch of that coming from the bodybuilding space, but like I couldn't stick to a diet or a calorie intake or whatever, because one, I was so restricted. And two, I was never actually giving my body enough to feel fueled and satisfied. I was always chasing the next 100-calorie snack.
So I came from kind of a different background where I ate mostly whole foods. I didn't like go search the grocery stores for like 100-calorie snacks or low calorie things, which I think a lot of the women that we work with, that's what they look for, is like products that are marketed as healthy that say low calorie. I really thought I was doing everything right, which is so arrogant. But I was eating what I would put in quotes as like clean, like how bodybuilders would eat if they were trying to get all their proteins in within 1,200 calories, because that's what MyFitnessPal told me I should do because I'm 5 feet tall. So for me, it was like, ooh, too many avocados, or if I ate a whole banana, or if I had full fat Greek yogurt, it's going to push me over in my calories for the day. So I ate mostly whole foods, not foods that were necessarily marketed as low calorie, but I restricted from higher fat versions, or more, I should just say more calorically dense versions of whole foods, where in reality, once I started adding nutrients and just focusing on that and not restricting calories, I was able to put on muscle, and I didn't look that different. It doesn't take a more healthy. But I ended up being able to put on muscle that sustained my metabolism and allowed me to burn more calories all the time. So then I didn't need to worry about restricting, right? So now I do not think about it. Like, I'm eating avocados daily. I'm eating whatever fruits I want in whatever portions I want. Anybody who tells you don't eat fruit because it has sugar, that they are uneducated and don't listen to them. I eat full fat Greek yogurt most of the time because I like the taste better, and dairy fat can be good for you and have nutrients. Now, if I'm in a caloric deficit, maybe I switch to fat-free Greek yogurt for a specific goal for a specific period of time. But most of my life is spent, how can I add nutrients, not on restriction?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really like, if you feel like you can relate to filling your diet with low calorie, low fat, low carb, I know a lot of women that I talk to specifically just tend to think their body is sensitive to carbs or they should be low carb. I had a client recently who went to the doctor and she told her doctor she can't lose weight. And she was like, oh, it's because you eat too many carbs. And I was like, for the love of God, how are we still here in 2025? But if you feel like you approach food or look at food in that manner, you probably don't feel great because you're lacking the actual nutrients that nutrient dense foods and whole foods provide. If you are trying to change your physique and feel stuck, a lot of times it's because you never actually feel full or satisfied and can't even stick or be compliant with a calorie goal. And then like, I know I struggled with this, food noise. I feel like it's a hot topic right now. You're probably going to have a lot of that if you are lacking all of the nutrients that your body needs and never giving it enough. And this is why so many women that come to me, I say, hey, when's the last time you intentionally ate 2,000 or more calories? And they're like, never. What do you mean? Like, only if I go off the rails on the weekend. And if you can't shut your brain off around food, you've created a not so healthy relationship with it when you look at it in this way and constantly feel like you have to restrict based on the appearance or the physique you want, right? So actually feeling your body, like Jess said, and giving your body what it needs is going to make you have less cravings and less sugar cravings and feel less tempted around food, right? We had a whole episode on like food neutrality. Giving your body what it actually needs is going to heavily help contribute to that. So we want to kind of talk about all of the ways that low calorie foods are the problem.
And I want to build on it, not just low calorie, but things that are marketed to us as healthy, right? Because if something said, I think this goes twofold, right? There's a lot of women who search for low calorie or low carb or low fat options because they're trying to lose weight, right? There's also the group of women who think that they're doing everything right, who are just adding high protein snacks or high fiber wraps instead of just eating plants that have fiber, right? So they are like, yay, I'm checking the boxes for my protein and fiber goals, but they're missing all the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, all the other benefits that they would get from those whole foods because they are only or mostly consuming convenience processed options of those foods that are stripped of their actual nutrients.
And I think you kind of touched on this, and I don't know that I had this thought prior to you saying what you just said. I think that one of the reasons that I love tracking macros for a certain period of time is learning that, right? How much protein, carbs, and fiber are actually in a cup of edamame or a cup of quinoa or 4 ounces of chicken. When you learn that, you don't have to rely on this label that's claiming it's high protein. When I think you kind of touched on this, there's like, we have like, little Kodiak cups that Mason uses once in a blue moon for a snack. And they say packed with protein. They're like 10 grams in there. I mean, packed with protein, I think is relative, right? Like
I could easily get that from adding a scoop of hemp hearts to my kids' oats that are just plain oats at home. And then we could add other stuff that makes it higher protein, higher fiber.
Fit I add to my smoothies all the time. And that's like a better alternative.
So it's all relative, and a lot of it is marketing manipulation. But yeah, I think shifting from, it tells me it has this, to actually being educated on reading a label too, right? Like I know a lot of our clients love the carb balance wraps, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. If you're choosing, I don't care what kind of wrap you get. I have like normal white flour wraps in my fridge when we want to make fajitas. I'm not against having those. But if that's your primary source of fiber, look at the label. It's like refined bleached white flour is ingredient number 1, ingredient number 2, right? And you go through that list and where's the nutrients, right? It's just enriched fiber stuff. So, okay, let's go through this list because we have a pretty hefty list here of all the reasons that we probably wouldn't go this route.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of talked about low calorie not equating at all to nutrient dense. In fact, a lot of times, not all the time, it's typically the opposite. But an example of not the opposite, just so I can clarify, would be like a cup of raspberries is low calorie, but packed with nutrients, right? So this is all relative. And I always want to be clear that we're not just hard and fast. Everything low calorie is awful for you, right? So just want to throw that.
We want to talk about the word nutrient density, right? So per calorie that you're consuming, we want as many nutrients as possible. So generally, the best way to do this is adding whole foods. lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, things that actually look like the plant or animal that they came from. So what ends up happening is if we eat more of these things, we get more food volume for the exact same amount of calories, right? Like how many calories am I going to get if I eat a big ass bowl of vegetables with some chicken breast versus a bag of chips, right? Like it's not actually that many calories, but it fills up way more space in my body. So there's the fullness factor of that. And there's the nutrient factor now, right? Like now I'm getting micronutrients and I'm getting more fiber and I'm getting more protein. All of those things activate pathways in our body that actually impact our craving and our hunger cues. And they cause us to be more full and have less cravings.
And I know that I fell in this trap for many years. I talk about it. There's like different like terms like macro hoarding or calorie hoarding, where like you're trying to eat low calorie all day because you feel like you're a binger at night. But in reality, it's because you're not giving your food enough fuel and nutrients throughout the day, right? So it was, I call it like the snack diet problem, where I was always like eating the next 100-calorie thing so that I could save my calories for that binge or whatever the case was. But I was never actually feeling satisfied. And I did that for a long time, where I kind of looked at food that way, and withheld. And I would fear that I would overeat calories, because if I ate an avocado, I'd be like, whoa, this is going to give me a 400 to 500 calorie breakfast. That's like all of my day. So part of the problem is there's scarcity around calorie density, but in reality, if you eat more nutrient dense foods, you're going to be more satisfied and you're naturally going to eat less. So I think it's one of the reasons that we take women through our program in the manner that we do is we don't think reverse dieting is like the end all be all magic potion, right? It's that it's combined with looking at habits and the way that we view food, right? And undoing a lot of those patterns and beliefs that might stick with us that we don't even realize, right? But sometimes it's so inherently ingrained in us at this point that we don't even realize we do these things. Like, when's the last time you did eat a full fat yogurt? When's the last time you ate, a white potato instead of a sweet potato? Because I used to think white potatoes were terrible, right? So I think understanding that too, like giving your body the nutrients that it needs, is going to make you less of an air quote binge eater, less likely to want to snack in the evenings because your body is satisfied and fueled and nourished. It's actually the low calorie, lacking nutrient choices that you're making all day that are then leading to this overeating problem at night. So I know that I heavily fell into that trap, and shocker, when I started eating more nutrient dense foods, I didn't label myself that way anymore.
And if you fear that you are going to eat too many calories because of this, that brings us back to episode 1, maybe 1 or 2, like how can you make your metabolism faster, right? Our body, just like we plateau in a diet after a certain amount of time, most of the women listening to this have probably experienced that, where they're like, I don't know, nothing's working. In the same way you have adapted your body to low calories, we can adapt your body back up to higher calories. Even better, if you lift weights along with it, you're going to put it towards really healthy muscle tissue. So you don't need to be scared of more calories if doing it in the right way.
And stemming off of that too, like you're going to have a hard time staying in a calorie goal that's drastically low for years and years and years on end. So behaviorally, Jess said, right? Like behaviorally, it becomes a problem, but metabolically, you're not in a good place when you could just train your metabolism to eat more. And I love when clients say that. They're like, I have a client who came to me and she's like, I've done so many programs. Nobody can get me to lose weight, whatever. And then she was like, well, it's because I binge. And she has been with me for almost 10 months. And she's like, I can't believe I haven't binged once since I started this program. And I'm like, fascinating. All we did was increase her calories, add some strength training, work on healthy habits with sleep. And now she's in a much better place, right? So more food can absolutely equate to better results when done correctly. And when you're getting enough, like Jess said, protein, fiber, healthy nutrients that actually help regulate hunger and hormones and make all of that easier. But if you're stuck in that calorie trap where it's like unrealistic diet attempts, you're just setting yourself up to fail, and you're only focusing on the lowest calories versus the best calories, right? The things that are actually going to fuel your body and your metabolism ultimately in the long run to make it easier for you. And then you'll be eating more and weight will also be easier. And there you go. That's how it happens.
Yeah. So we just talked about it from a behavioral standpoint. Now, from a data standpoint, the FDA allows a 20% difference on packaged food item nutrition labels. So what does that mean? If a package says it's 200 calories, it could be anywhere between 160 and 240 calories. If you're eating mostly packaged or processed items, that difference adds up throughout the day. And that's not even including like meals out at restaurants, which are way bigger in variation, right? So even if you, oh yeah, I'm not overeating calories. Your likelihood of overeating calories if eating mostly packaged items, even if they're marketed as healthy or high protein, is higher, right? Versus if you eat mostly whole foods, you're going to tend to eat lower calories just based on the accuracy of that. The second thing, again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over, in addition to all the micronutrients that you're going to get that you won't get with those processed items. But also on top of that, there was a study that was done in 2019 where they took two groups that were controlled and they allowed one group only whole foods and one group only processed packaged items. And they were told, hey, eat until you're full. Let's just see what happens. And it was a very controlled study. And the group that was given whole foods only ended up eating on average 500 calories less per day because their fullness signals were working appropriately. So, and macronutrients, I did not read the whole study. I read the summary of the study. Macronutrients were controlled. So both groups got the same amount of protein, and the whole foods group still was more satiated and full, and ended up not overeating, not even trying.
I think
So
the other
again,
thing too is like it is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's a lot more difficult or less likely to overeat nutrient dense foods. If
Yeah.
you are looking at a processed meal, lean cuisine from the grocery store versus making grilled chicken, broccoli, and mixed veggies at home, the odds of you overeating and over consuming grilled chicken and a bunch of broccoli and vegetables, not very high. You're going to feel really full when it's way easier to overconsume something that's a lot more processed, less nutrient dense because
they
you're not
engineer
getting
it that
same-
way.
Yeah.
And they engineer it that way so that you want more of their product, right? They're selling a product, so they add oils and sweeteners. Even if the sweetener has zero sugar, right? They're adding fats, sweeteners, or salt to make it more palatable so that we are likely to eat more of it. And that's how processed food is made. There's also inflammatory additives, which I think my opinion on this has changed over the course of time, where there was a time where I only ate, again, I'm going to put this in air quotes, clean. Then there was a time where I was like, it doesn't matter as long as calories are controlled, right? As long as you're not overeating calories, if you eat seed oils, it doesn't really matter. In most cases, that's true, but we're in a world where we have all these other toxins and stressors and stuff going on. If somebody is already predisposed to having some sort of autoimmune thing, or if they have some sort of stress overload, or if these inflammatory additives are paired with a caloric excess, you are way more susceptible to having health issues and underlying gut issues and metabolic issues. So, you don't need, think about it. Nobody can go eat wheat right off of the stalk. We don't go eat sugar right off of the cane. In a natural environment, these things would be very hard for us to access. And they're like the top two ingredients in almost every packaged item. So all these things that are added do add up as little inflammatory triggers in our system over time. Again, I eat these things. I'm not saying you need to restrict everything, but we want to make most of our foods out of things that look like the plant or animal they came from, and they're going to have less inflammatory things.
And then tying into like gut health too, fiber is like so much more than just, hey, fiber makes you feel full. It has so many benefits for your gut. But what I've seen happen with a lot of clients who tend to choose more convenience foods, processed, not prioritizing their health, just doing low calorie, they'll come to me and say, all of a sudden I'm bloated all the time and I don't know why. And they're like, I worked with functional, I did this, I went to a GI doctor, got all this tests done, and nobody knows the problem. But you've been eating 1,500 calories, probably not very nutrient dense for a long time. So now you have this inflammatory issue happening. And then what happens on the back end is you didn't give your body enough fiber, nutrients, all of those things. Now your body and gut are so inflamed that it has a hard time now digesting and processing fiber. So you avoid those foods even more because you're like, no, I'm sensitive to X, Y, and Z. When in reality, now you have an inflammatory issue because you ate so many processed foods. And now it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So like we need fiber, but you can't digest fiber. So
we could heal our gut over time, right?
So that you can process for that.
Yeah, and we can heal our gut over time so that you're able to digest and repopulate your good gut bacteria in the way that we should, and heal your gut lining so that it absorbs nutrients appropriately. I think all of that is really important in whole foods too. Like people think I've maybe talked about on this podcast, but I had an argument with like a carnivore zealot, who I know from the gym. And he's like, well, we just poop it out. What do you even need fiber for? You don't need it. And it's like, okay, also fiber isn't just fiber. There's lots of different varieties of fiber, and the different types of fiber, all of our different microorganisms in our gut eat and consume. And it helps us to keep our gut environment healthy to then process the foods that we do digest, right? So a variety is important. It's not just, oh yeah, I'm going to grab and again, I've struggled with what doctors called IBS since I was a little kid because I was on antibiotics every day for years of my childhood. They would have me take Metamucil drinks because it was like, here's your fiber, here's your psyllium husk, right? There's value to getting different types of fiber, to getting different resistant starches, so play in the produce section, get all different types of plants in your diet. Don't just try to fill that gap with some fiber supplement alone is all I'm saying.
Different prebiotics, probiotics.
Prebiotics, yeah.
The same probiotic for a year. And I'm like, okay, well, now you have an overgrowth of that bacterial strain.
That one thing.
Why you feel like crap, right? So
yep.
That variety in your diet is so important to not have this cascade of other problems just because you're trying to eat low calorie.
Yep. Okay. So the next point is palate adaptability. I'm bringing this up specifically for the low sugar snacks and drinks. So I don't think inherently there's a problem with like having a Coke Zero or having something with stevia or something every now and then. But behaviorally, when you have these artificial sweeteners, so one, gut health wise, it is not healthy for our gut lining. They can be inflammatory. Two, the more important thing I think for most people is that it gets you just craving more sugar, right? So even if there's no calories in that one item, you start thinking about and craving sugar at that particular time of day because you're used to grabbing whatever that thing is, right? So you guys could test this for yourself. If you did like a no sugar and no artificial sweetener added, I'm going to say added, right? You can have natural sugars in fruits, things like that. But if you did that for 30 days, after that 30 days, you are going to be like, oh my gosh, an apple tastes sweet again. Like things are going to taste sweet again that are supposed to be sweet to our palate because our palates adapt based on what we give it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too that like when we're talking about like psychological things, you think I'm hungry, but I need to be low calorie. So I'm going to eat this low calorie thing. But then you're actually making the problem worse because you're eating these small, lacking nutrients, unsatisfying serving amounts of food all day. Your brain is always now looking for more food. So, in the context of like body fat set point, right? I feel like this is like I don't know, sometimes controversial topic, but when you overeat, let's say you have a social event and you ate a ton one night, and maybe you even overdid it, you'll notice the next morning that you're not very hungry, right? Like your body is managing the best that it can. So it'll kind of decrease those hunger signals. Typically is the response temporarily. And then same in reverse. When you go into a calorie deficit, we tell this to clients, you're probably going to be hungry. There are things that you can do to try to mitigate that hunger as much as you can. But at the end of the day, you're burning more than your body's taking in. It is going to send you a hunger signal because it wants to eat more food, right? So it's why weight loss is physiological, it's psychological. There's so many components that go with it. But ultimately, just eating these small, tiny little foods, you're never really giving your body that injection of fuel, right? So that hunger's not turning off. And instead of just eating a nice, healthy, nutrient-dense option, you're stuck in this cycle of eating this air quotes healthy, low calorie snack, feeling satisfied for a minute, but you're constantly thinking about food. And again, bringing up the topic of food noise. And then you're grabbing something else small an hour later because your body still needs more. So you're just like grazing. And I love when people say that I'm a grazer. I just like to graze all day. There's this other problem there that we need to address, right?
I'm a grazer, but I graze on nutrient dense things, right? Like, so there's a difference in terms of, okay, I'm a grazer, but the people who are grazing on snacky packaged things, even if they think it's low calorie, it's like, okay, you're still not supporting your health by adding the good stuff.
And like, that's your body is sending you these signals, right? So like, I always look at it as like, if you have these intense cravings, it's like, why do I have them? And a lot of times I crave sugar, or I'm just somebody who craves sugar. I would say probably more than 90% of the time when somebody tells me that, in the same breath or conversation, they're telling me that they are keto or low carb and they have been for a long time. there's a correlation there, right? Like you're restricting something and your body is sending you signals for fuel, for under eating, for a lot of reasons, right? So,
or they're super, and I'm going to go the opposite direction. I have a lot of women who are super lacking in protein. They're not keto. But they're lacking in protein, and protein sends satiety signals. Protein and fiber both lower your blood sugar, right? When your blood sugar starts increasing, there's a cycle there where you start craving more sweets too. So I think it goes twofold, but you need to add, a lot of times that's a good behavioral trick. Like if you crave sweets, grab something that has protein and fiber in it, like a apple and a handful of nuts, or some chicken, some beef jerky. I don't know. And then wait 15 minutes, wait 20 minutes and see what happens. If you're still craving the thing, right on, go have the thing. Either way, you're better off for it nutrient wise. But more times than not, what you end up finding is like, oh, my craving actually went down because my body's satisfied now.
yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a lot of, I think, psychological aspects to the way that we look at food. And again, that approach stuck with me for a really long time. And I wish I could say like what it was that shifted it for me, but I think that ultimately when and people might not like this answer, but ultimately when I stopped dieting for a little while and just sat at maintenance and fueled my body and focused on my relationship with food and made it, a lot of intention around eating a certain number of like plants and nutrient dense foods and colors per day, all of a sudden I didn't really have this problem anymore with this negative relationship with food. But I remember going to like social events and overeating Doritos and M&Ms and then feeling immense guilt after. But like when you just fuel your body, for one, I don't even like to eat a lot of those things anymore. They don't make me feel good. So I choose not to have them. But your relationship with food starts to look different in a lot of different ways. And then honestly, you could probably be eating more food now if you're eating more nutrient dense and see improved, specifically talking to physique, obviously the health benefits, see improved external or physique benefits than you do eating shitty processed 1,500 calories worth of food per day.
1,000%.
You're going to see better results for a lot of reasons outside of just metabolism and that efficiency. But yeah, and then gut health, we could do a whole nother episode on that, I think.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, we like to give our lessons when you walk away from these episodes in terms of like what to do and how to approach this so that you're not chasing low calorie foods endlessly. Would be eating actual whole foods in the grocery store. You're welcome. You'll also save money instead of a bunch of packaged low calorie options.
Again, you can cook it, sauce it up, season it however you want. When we say whole foods, we don't mean a raw foods diet or something like that, right? Like eat whatever you want, but does it look like the plant or animal it came from when you bought it? And then great, now do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when people say eating healthy is expensive. I'm like, go to Aldi and get a bunch of produce.
Well, or do an audit of how many times a week are you getting unhealthy stuff ordering out, because the amount of or packaged things, right? The amount of packaged processed foods, those are also expensive, actually.
Expensive. Yeah, individually wrapped things, packaged, processed, those are always going to be more expensive. I know that our grocery bill immensely changed a couple of years ago when we started pulling back from that. And it's funny, we used to treat Costco very differently than we do now. We used to like load up on all the packaged things just because it was there and it was an option.
And they're good, yeah, but
just not beneficial, right? In terms of health, we save so much money just ordering more whole foods from our regular grocery store. Like Jess said, prioritizing protein, fiber, healthy fats, and having an actual meal. Again, there's nothing wrong with grazing. I just made a post the other day about how I feel like I have like a security blanket in my container of blueberries that I carry with me everywhere, because I like to like snack on something throughout the day at my computer. And I know that I'm at least getting something nutrient dense in my body when I'm snacking on that versus getting like mindlessly lost in chips or something. So eating enough to support your activity level and your metabolism. So listen to basically every episode we've ever recorded in terms of metabolism and fueling your body and not under eating. And then stop chasing the lowest calorie option and focus on nutrient quality, focus on fiber, start learning how to read labels and look at how many ingredients are in there and really like what serves you best. Don't get overwhelmed with it because it's a lot to learn initially, but ultimately, if you're getting enough protein, enough fiber, you're not restricting any one macro, you're counting colors in your day, and just focusing on getting more of that like volume and nutrients, just packing in as many different options into your day as you can. And like Jeff said, it doesn't need to be raw foods. It can be whatever, right? You can make a casserole, you can make a smoothie. There's like so
mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
And you just add olive oil. Like you could add, and butter is fine, right? But you're cooking these things. You're not buying things that have all these other million additives.
Yeah. So anything else? I think that's it, right?
No, I feel like that's it. I just wrote notes for a future podcast episode because I think maybe we should dive deeper into, okay, how to read these labels. What are the ingredients that you and I look for or look to avoid when we're buying things that are packaged, right? We don't eliminate everything. Neither of us do. But we're educated on on the things that we don't include most of the time, right? So maybe we can do a whole episode on that.
Absolutely. And I think there are different levels to that. I think that I approach labels differently a couple of years ago than I do now because I'm just a lot further in my journey and my goals are different. I'm probably a little bit more, I don't like the word advanced. I think I probably avoid a lot more ingredients that maybe the average person doesn't need to like factor in right from the start, right? If we're talking organic versus not and all of those things, right? Like that's
we think in terms of like biggest bang for your buck based on where you are in your journey, right? So most people would benefit just from adding protein and adding fiber. And that's a great step one. Then once that becomes your norm and your habit, then maybe we layer in new habits. So when Jill is talking about maybe being at a place in her journey where she is able to be a little bit more critical, it's because these other things, she's already built this foundation of these other habits first that are the most important things. So maybe we can even include something like that. Again, we never want to elicit fear around food. We want to just teach you guys how to add the good stuff because generally that will help you become healthier and achieve the physique that you want.
Thanks. That's what I was trying to say.
Sorry for interrupting.
I was getting there.
You know.
No, thanks for bringing the train back to the station. Appreciate it. So I hope that was helpful. And yeah, we'll do a whole other episode on food labels and gut health, all of these things that we touched on in this episode. But for now, don't chase low calorie foods. Fuel your body. Protein, fiber. Keep it simple. Count your colors. And that's all. We'll see you guys next time.